Okay, now I ended the last session with this chart right here, and I will read this little part. There's a blue side and a red side. The above are divided pairs which are equal and are therefore true sex mates. And you can read some of the elements like fluoride and lithium fluoride, chlorine and sodium chloride, bromine and potassium bromine. The zero universe divides its stillness into sex-divided pairs of oppositely extended spiral motion for the purpose of uniting to create more sexed pairs. Nature knows no other process than sex division and sex unity. And here is another chart. There are no such effects in nature as negative charge or negatively charged particles. Electricity is nature's sex force. And I'll just let y'all look at this diagram. In man's cosmology, these are magnetic lines of force. There are no magnetic lines of force in nature. In God's cosmology, these are the electric dividers of stillness into curved planes of equipotential electric pressures. So, electricity creates life by dividing stillness into two-way motion. It creates death by rest from motion. All motion in all this universe is based upon the fact that the sexless condition of stillness has been divided into two sexed conditions. The division begins its tension at the cathode and multiplies that tension as the division extends from the cathode toward the anode. Electricity thus creates tensions and strains, which we call electric potential. Electric potential is the measure of compression at any one point in the universe. Gravity is evidenced wherever compression from without is maximum. Gravity is a focal point from which matter desires to explode outwardly. Gravity does not pull inwardly from within, as the deceptive illusion of nature would have you believe. Neither is it the attractive force, which Newton's senses were deceived into believing. For a center of gravity is a point of maximum electric potential. Gravity never changes. It is never more or less. It is maximum everywhere. It is electric potential which changes by multiplying and dividing the measure of power it is able to express by drawing it from its gravity center of control. It is like the power of a man who can draw but little from the great omnipotence which centers him, as compared with another man whose knowledge enables him to draw more of it. Electric potential is the tension caused by the electric division of the one universal condition of rest into two unbalanced conditions of motion. Polarity and sex are one. The two poles which unite are male and female opposites in all matter. The ideal that sex is solely a characteristic of organic bodies is not a true concept. Sodium and chlorine are as male and female as man and woman are male and female. Every particle of matter in the universe is either male or female, and these pairs are electrically projected together in the ratios of force which Newton gave to the acceleration of gravity, and upon a multiplication of speed and potential principle, which Einstein gave in his equation of 1905. If therefore all motion is solely for the purpose of either seeking sex union or sex division, why should we not immediately remodel our thinking to conform with nature's processes, and now think of our divided, double-pressured universe as an electrically sex-conditioned one? And here's another chart. I'll let you look at it for a little while there. This is illustrating the father-mother principle of building bodies by dividing light into polarized units, and reproducing bodies by uniting two oppositely projected units into one by centrifugal compression. Polarity and sex are one. Sex and electric potential are one. Now it shows the anoid and the cathode in the middle, the anoid on both sides, and then it shows man and woman and the sex division. And I don't understand all these charts, but I will read what it says under it. The cathode in nature is the still point of magnetic white light of mind, from which motion begins to compress in two opposite directions to create sex-divided bodies. Gravity begins when compression begins. Polarization and compression are one. And now another chart. Life is but motion. Death is rest. This drawing shows the method and process of interchange between the zero universe of mind and the multiple universe of motion. Study all other drawings and relate them to these two. The more you comprehend them, the more you will also comprehend that life is but fast motion, and that death is a cessation of motion. The division of sexless oneness into pairs could not be a part of nature's process without also dividing the oneness of light. God's magnetic light is white because it is still. It has no tensions or strains in it, for it is not divided. It is invisible to the senses because it has no motion in it. The moment motion begins, the light of the Creator's energy is divided into pairs which multiply their red and blue intensities in the ratio of their extension from their cathode beginnings, just as electric potential multiplies its intensity for the same reason. If, therefore, the Creator electrically divides His one pressureless, motionless light into two oppositely pressured lights of motion, is it not imperative that we associate these two similar effects, rise from the same cause, and judge them as one? Should we not recognize the fact that these two colliding light pressures wind up together as a bolt threads into a nut, or more properly, as one spiral spring intertwines into another? Is it not logical, therefore, to realize that the interpenetrating half of the spectrum is red and the outer half is blue? That is the way we find it in nature. And there's another chart. I'll leave it on this just a little while. This shows how the heartbeat piston operates between the vacuity of the Creator's magnetic light universe of mind energy and the potential of the electrically pressured universe to create cycles of two-way motion. The more you can comprehend the secret of God's mind control over His creation, which is His universal body, the more you will be able to control your body, for you will then know that God's mind and yours are one. Another chart. North is the direction of charging, south is the direction of discharge, south is the direction of death, north is the direction of life. Charging electricity multiplies power, discharging electricity divides power. That's figure 18. A study of figure 18 together with the bar magnet diagrams and other polarity diagrams shown in figures 11 to 16 will prepare you for a better understanding of the nature of electricity and the electric current. The inner core is the red of its heat, and the outer layers are the blue of space, into which the red core projects its heat to expand it. The outer layers then cool it, and thus create imprisoned bodies whose sole desire is to escape imprisonment. Beyond carbon, the inner core reverses to blue. That is the way it is all through nature. Compressed motion heats bodies which endeavor to escape. Expanded cold freezes bodies to keep them from escaping. That is the principle of body forming. That is the principle of growth from a seed to a tree. The seed generates heat from the moisture of the sun-warmed ground. The seed explodes in its endeavor to escape from its compression prison. The explosion creates heat which is cooled, and that which unfolds is refolded. Cell by cell is thus added by the interchange of motion between red light and blue, and between heat and cold, as the Father interpenetrates the mother womb of nature to generate bodies, and the bodies escape from their wombs to return to their source. As we thus unfold nature's processes and her way of working, you will gradually comprehend that there is no place in God's cosmology for such a concept as negative electricity or negatively charged bodies. We live in a universe in which all creating, charging, polarizing, compressing, and heating bodies manifest life, and all discharging, depolarizing, expanding, and cooling bodies manifest death. One cannot say that a dying body is negatively charged, for a charging body is positive. It is living. Your car battery can be charging from its generator and simultaneously discharging from its use. But if you had no generator in your car, the battery would discharge its charge until electricity ceased in it. While it is dying, you would not even then say that it is negatively charged, for it would still be positively charged until it could no longer move. We do not say negative sound or silent sound when it is ceasing or has ceased, nor do we say negative warmth or cold warmth when a hot iron is cooling or has cooled, nor do we say negative life when a man is dying or is dead. Another chart, the magnetic cathode from which all motion is extended in divided sex pairs for again uniting to create more sex pairs. The magnetic mind shaft around which all matter is created and controlled. The kingdom of heaven within. Electricity compresses and ceases to compress, but we do not then say that it is negatively compressed. It is for that reason we put a positive sign wherever an electric condition is existent. But there is no need for any sign unless there could be two which indicate sex, and two which indicate charge and discharge. When motion ceases, electricity ceases. It is not then negative electricity, as death is not negative life. In all of these charging and discharging effects, the tensions of the color spectrum parallel the tensions of electric potential. That is why they should be considered together. If this change in our thinking is true to nature, there can be only one kind of electricity, positive electricity, meaning the power to charge or compress. It necessarily and logically follows that a negative electricity would be impossible in an electrically polarized universe in which both divided mates are equal. It also would be unnecessary if the other end of the compression pump, which this universe is the universal vacuum. Shall we call this new thinking, or is it but changed thinking? Shall we concede that early observers who arrived at such conclusions in the infancy of scientific research were right without the possibility of being mistaken? Or can we not consider them as torch-bearers rather than anchors? It is in this sense that we present quite a different picture of the universe than the old one, which early observers sincerely and conscientiously gave to us as the best they knew in those early days. We cannot present the new concept of the nature of the universe in the terminology which sprang from old concepts, however, so we beg of our readers that you realize the necessity of so doing is not critical of past contributors to world progress, but are only adding to it by changing old concepts to fit new illumining, which time and research have made possible. We feel that this explanation is necessary because some of the new changes of concept are so radically different from traditional training and thinking. We repeat, however, that the main purpose of this book is to give this new knowledge in the interest of world survival only at this time, and it is not given as a textbook of new scientific thinking for educational purposes. That will come later, and in other ways, such as we are gradually giving to our students. For this reason, these writings are brief, but brief as they are, they will throw more light upon the new age of transmutation, which would surely follow a change from the old concepts of matter and motion to the new concepts briefly outlined herein. Transmutation needs but the comprehension of a few men of vision, men whose minds are not fixedly closed, to make it a reality. Transmutation is the simplest of all the principles of nature, 10,000 times more simple than what is now being dangerously and expensively done. The first step toward it is to discover that matter and motion is tonal and thoroughly controllable. The elements are not substances, they are but states of motion, which can be controlled by knowledge and electric power. The present concept, which makes it necessary to knock out an electron from one element to transmute it to another, is contrary to nature's workings. No one would think of trying to knock out one part of a sound to make it into another sound, or to take an arm from a man to transmute him into a horse. That is what science is trying to do, however, by knocking an electron from mercury to produce gold. There are no electrons in the elements to knock out in any case, as we shall see. Nature's patterns, species, and sexes can be modified, but they are the same in kind. Transmutation means modification through knowledge of how to control that modification, which is as simple as the retuning of a harp string by increasing its vibration frequencies. Nature divides, multiplies, and combines by the use of electricity. Man has all the electric power he needs at his command. Every state of motion and any combination of those states can be made use of by man if he but knows how nature does it. Every element can be retuned or divided into pairs, and the pairs retuned. Every combination, such as the atmosphere, can be divided, and its pairs used separately or recombined as one wishes. Hydrogen, oxygen, or nitrogen, in combination, can be taken apart with ease and used separately or recombined or modified at will. Likewise, salt water can very simply be taken apart and recombined minus its salt at will. When nature divides, she always creates male and female mate pairs. She then multiplies those mate pairs separately or in union. She multiplies sodium into potassium, then into calcium. She multiplies fluoride into chlorine, then into bromine, and again into iodine. Man could do this same thing with any tonal element and even split them into semitones. Man could also divide such elements as carbon and produce from carbon alone 5 pairs of rustless stainless metals of high melting points, high malleability, and conductivity. The elements are but the alphabet of man to write what he chooses with his letters. They are but the tonal notes upon the 9-octave keyboard of the cosmic instrument, with which he has but begun to compose the symphonies of his desiring and his imagining. Nature can create cyclones, if it becomes conditioned for cyclones, but man can control those conditions and divide them at his will. Likewise, man can create rains wherever he wishes and in any amount. The world's vast deserts can be forested with date palms and carpeted with a verdure which would end dust storms forever and add materially to the world food supply. To enable man to do this, he needs only the knowledge of space geometry, mathematics, the wave of gravity control, and the nature of electric current. The great power to transmute through mind control by mind knowing is man's when he finally knows cause, instead of being limited to the effects of cause. When that day comes, man will no longer need to use the limited supply of the earth's fossil fuels, nor need he labor to procure them. The age of transmutation can be but 1 year away if man chooses to open his mind to new concepts, or otherwise it may be 3,000 years away. Cause can never be known by the study of its effects in motion. Cause is knowing mind, not in sensed body. Cause lies within the invisible universe, which does not respond to the senses, and not in the senses which can but sense motion and can never know. The senses forever look out through the convexity or concavity of pressure lenses and mirrors of a curved universe of two-way motion. Distorted images and an upside-down universe is recorded upon the senses. The inner vision is not electric, it is magnetic. The cube mirrors of space are of zero curvature and do not distort. The mind conception transcends the sense objective and is not deceived by illusion, for mind is the creator of illusion. Mind knows and projects its light. Senses can but reflect, they cannot know. And so it is that man peers into microscopes and telescopes. He builds great laboratories for research into effects of things which move. He gathers much information about their movements and develops great skills in controlling the movements of moving things. He then reasons and assembles, but reasoning is not knowing, and assembling is not creating. But what does man know? Informing the senses of effects of motion does not awaken knowledge in mind. On the contrary, all effect of motion are optical illusions, which deceive the senses and cause men to form conclusions which are not true to nature. It is now time that man must realize, maybe that's a misspelled word there. Men must realize that the key to nature's secrets can never be found in the visible universe. It can only be found in the invisible universe, which creates and controls the visible. But we cannot know the invisible universe because we cannot see it, man says. As the spiritual nature of man unfolds, he becomes aware of the fact that he can see one half of the universe and never know it, and the other half he can know but cannot see. We believe also that man can never find true happiness until he has finally solved the full meaning of what life and death really are, instead of the dread meaning which he has given to a belief in death, which has no validity whatsoever in nature. For these reasons, we shall briefly define God as we have pictured his omnipresence and purpose in lesson number 13 of our Science of Man Home Study course. This basic foundation of creation will aid in comprehending the true nature of electricity and gravitation. And I will begin with the next chapter in the next session.